I think a new regulation is needed for several reasons. The primary one is that the existing regulations are getting old, and they were written in a different time. So they were written before we had the incredible spread of data, and they were written in circumstances which were different to those that we face today.
So, I mean, the current legislation is now 20 years old, it's hit its anniversary, so it's important that we need to update that and bring that more in line with, again, the current technology trends of today. I think organisations are really pushing for that as well. Again, we're now processing and controlling more data than we have been before. Again, in 1995, there was 1% of the internet had data. We now have a lot more, and companies need to really understand the value of that data.
Data on the move wasn't quite the issue that it is today. We didn't have cloud. Nobody was talking really about cloud in the context that they are these days. Data being held in the cloud and all of those kind of capabilities, which nowadays is sort of the common parlance in the business world, just wasn't there. So they've had to recognise that there is this need to address this new technological world and how the data privacy is impacted by it.
In most cases, they're communicating what the changes will be. How prepared they actually are is, I think, still to be defined. But they understand what it means. They understand the proposal. They understand the changes that need to be made.
Those that are operating in Europe, and particularly those that may have parent offices in Europe, are well prepared. They understand what's coming. Others have tended to put their head in the sand a little bit, and they keep thinking, well, it's still 2 years away, but soon there's going to be the realization that those 2 years have passed. So I think that the greatest challenge is going to be the one of determining how you forget about people. What you do to demonstrate to those who've entrusted data to you that you no longer hold that data and that you've disposed of it.
One of the things that this legislation does is it expands dramatically the scope of legislation, as much as not only is it EU-based companies, it's also anybody who's doing business in the EU, but it's also not only what the so-called data collectors, namely the companies who are actually Tesco, for argument's sake, who is actually taking all that data that it has on what you do when you're buying from them online or in the shop. But also, the new element is the data processors. In other words, people who are not necessarily the end recipients of the data, the corporations who are taking that data and doing stuff with it and basing marketing decisions, but actually companies who are through whose networks it is transiting. So this brings in the whole world of cloud service providers.
So they really should look at, again, some of the core principles that exist in the current directive. They need to start mapping that to what the proposal also states, and they need to be, again, further communicating to the relevant teams across their business. So having meetings with the legal counsel, having discussions, again, with HR around, again, specifically employee data, and then really focusing on the business that process, again, consumer and EU citizen data. That's what they should be doing now.
The things to focus on are, firstly, who it is going to take responsibility in the organisation, then how you're going to demonstrate the compliance, what appointments you need to make as part of that, and then to look at the technical controls, the things that are required. They're not particularly difficult, they're often common sense things, but you need to look at them and understand them and see whether your organisation has those in place, and if not, what measures you need to put in place to plan for that compliance in the future.